Welcome to the Gym Heroes Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Peacock. Today's show is brought to you by Gymdesk, the easiest gym management software you'll ever use. Take payments, create marketing automations, track attendance, and much more. To try the software out free, go to gymdesk.com. No credit card or painful sales call required. Our hero today is Cameron Haines, founder of Mobile Body Scans. Understanding your body fat to muscle ratio is really important to know if your workout programs are successful, whether you're a bodybuilder, a power lifter, or even just an endurance athlete. DEXA scans are too expensive and too infrequent, and the stuff you can buy off Amazon is too inaccurate. In this episode, Cameron unpacks how gyms can serve their most serious members with monthly body scans with the much more accurate mobile body scan machines that he offers. Without further ado, Cameron Haines. Welcome to the Gym Heroes Podcast. Today I have Cameron with me. Cameron, if you would go ahead and introduce yourself and your background in fitness to our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So I have been in the industry as a professional since 2010, I believe. I always get mixed up on that in some ways. But pretty much the first thing I came out of it, I've always been a sports person. I've had a lot of joint injuries, had 3 knee surgeries, shoulder surgery, hip, and a few other things. Due to some sporting injuries and other things here in my sort of between the ages of 12 and 25. So always kind of looked at that fitness perspective, and that's kind of guided my career. Originally, before I've gone full-time into the body scan business, which we'll be chatting about today, I ran my own private studio. So I progressed from a commercial gym, what we call here in Australia, or like the big chain gym sort of thing, through to a more secluded private studio, and then decided to build my own studio where I implemented the body scan machines and did that sort of stuff with a whole bunch of other technology. So it's been a pretty extensive career so far, and had staff members, done all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's been fun.
Great. So we're doing mobile body scans now. That is something that you've been promoting to gyms. What is the mobile body scan? How does it compare to something like DEXA?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I'll start with the mobile body scans, then I'll go to the DEXA side of things because they're very two different things. So for us, we use InBody 570 machines as part of our business, and they were what I used as part of my private studio as well. The mobile componentry for us is that we transit those machines to locations. So our model is more about providing those machines to gyms that don't have them, or don't have the capital perspective, because a body scan machine here in Australia is like 30,000 Australian dollars. I think it's like, say, 25, somewhere in that range, USD. So they're very expensive machines. And if you're not getting a return on your investment in some ways, why do you have it? So that's where we sort of come in, where we hire our machines to the people. We let them have it under their own branding. We go through it and offer everything that you would have from having a machine, just not there 24/7. When we look at the DEXA, and the only answer I can give you is what I understand. And DEXA has been the gold standard and probably the first body composition perspective that was ever produced. So with a DEXA scan, of course, you've got that X-ray perspective, or it is an image perspective. And then they use a calculation to adjust and go, okay, well, we think that shadowing is muscle. We think that shadowing is bone. So it's all calculation based. So in the BIA world, which the InBody machines are, they would believe that their machines are probably better than a DEXA in some ways for 2 main reasons. It takes 60 seconds. So it's jump on. It's much more user-friendly and easy. You don't have any radiation. Even though a radiation of an DEXA scan is minimal, you will not be able to get a DEXA scan monthly. You can hop on a body scan machine like the InBody machines daily if you wanted to. So there's a few benefits, and I think that's really more the conversation. You can't really say that one is better than the other. If we wanted to have the truest conversation about body composition, we'd all get CT or CT scans. But do we have the money to get a CT scan? And of course, you're not going to get access to it or be able to afford it, or the radiation. There's all these different aspects that come to it in that way.
So I'm interested to know your experience with DEXA, because you seem to know quite a bit to be able to compare the two together. So what is your experience with DEXA, and how have you been able to juxtapose your machine with DEXA?
So the main thing is the training I've gone through and the in-depth perspective that I've gone with InBody, or the InBody machines, or BIA machines, I think is the broader terminology, because there's a fair few BIA machines or bioimpedance analysis machines on the market. The most original body scan that I ever got done was a DEXA. So I did it at a local place to me back in the capital of Australia, Canberra. So that was where I got my experience, and it was just a bit weird, I guess, because like for me, you lay down the table and the table weighs you, so as you lie down, and then from there it was good information, but I definitely feel like I get more out of the data set that comes from the InBody machines, particularly. They're the ones I believe the most in, but there is other BIA machines out there that do a great job as well.
Cool. So speaking from the perspective of a gym owner or a trainer inside of a gym, how do the mobile body scanning devices, you call them, are they in body? Is that what you call them?
Correct. The machines we use are InBody 570s. So
Okay.
that's the model.
Awesome. So how does that change the customer experience for members of gyms?
To me, the biggest thing, there's two different avenues there, right? From a business perspective, and why I implemented body scan machines into my own studios, if I use that as an example, was I wanted to demonstrate to my customers what was going on with their bodies. So as they were going through their training, as they were doing what they were doing, I wanted to facilitate them in the best way possible to help them get what they wanted out of their results. Now, each and every owner and position, everyone has a different perspective on that. But I think as professionals, we should be looking with that lens all the time. We should be, how can we help these people? And like I had a great experience recently with a customer of one of our hirees. They were a 5-day-a-week trainer. They had a very low muscle mass, very high fat mass, and they were really disgruntled. But at the end of the day, we were able to help shape their transition and go, well, you need to change your training. So that, from a business perspective, has meant that client now has a better representation of their studio. They have a better rapport and relationship with their trainer, their facility, all of those sort of things. When we look at it purely from a trainer perspective, I think it's even more important in the standpoint of creating better relationships. And that's one of the things that my business of mobile body scans is trying to enhance. There is people in the market for us in Australia, and I'm sure there is over the world, that do it, where I would take my body scan machine into a studio and I would interpret for those clients. Now, if I'm to do that, I'm projecting my beliefs upon that person that I'm scanning. In comparison, in the way that we do it, we hire the machine and we are there to support our hiree, but we're behind the scenes. So you or the hiree or the trainer or the gym owner is able to have that conversation with your customer, because you know their state, you know their rapport, you know their kids, probably all of that sort of stuff. So an interpretation that I might do may be actually incorrect, because I might say, well, it's really sad you've lost muscle mass in the last 3 months, but they might have only done cardio based training and they're not even cared about muscle mass. So it's a hard way in that standpoint. But again, that's the bridge we're trying to create with the business model that I've got, is to facilitate it more for the end user experience in comparison for anything else.
Yeah. Whether you're doing like a cardio endurance based workout protocol, or you're trying to bodybuild, or you're trying to become stronger, your fat to muscle ratio is really important, whether or not you're
Massive.
actually losing some of those extra pounds. With that in mind, what value can these machines bring to a fitness studio? I mean, it sounds like it could be really useful to trainers and coaches to actually prove their program, the value of their programs.
I think it has a relevance across the board. I've heard of these machines used all the way up into the NBA and that sort of stuff. Or for us, it's a lot of our like national sporting leagues and that sort of stuff. But I do know they get used in the States in those sort of circles. It's sometimes like, in that instance, it's like LeBron James or someone like that starts the season with so much muscle mass and so much fat mass on his body, and across like 100 and something games, isn't it? All of a sudden he is actually less because of what occurs throughout that transition. So to me, what I really love about these machines, for anyone from an average Joe Blow all the way through to an elite triathlon or athlete of that standpoint, you're able to get a data set and have relationship and knowledge of what's going on in that time period. So as you mentioned, if you were a bodybuilder and you were looking at just trying to create lean muscle mass, you can record that. But your goal may all of a sudden change. You go, you know what? I want to run a marathon or I want to do a triathlon. And being able to kind of go, this is my body when I'm doing bodybuilding training. This is my body when I'm doing more cross training or I'm doing more endurance training. Which of those do I want? Which of those do I like? Is really at the end of the day what the matter is. And as an example, I said before, the person, and one of the catchphrases that I really like that I've developed, or I've kind of, I'm sure it came from somewhere, but I don't know where, is for me, body scan machines stop us looking at our relativity to gravity. Because realistically, on a normal set of scales, that's all it is. It's our relativity to gravity. When we get on a body scan machine and we get that composition perspective, we can now look at our relativity to gravity, our muscle mass, our water masses, our mineral masses, and know what that number's actually made up of.
Real quick before I put you back into the episode, Gymdesk has powerful yet intuitive features to grow your business, and there's a few really great features I'd like to highlight. The first is a deep, best-in-class email and SMS marketing system with automation tools to make your life as a business person so much easier. It's like having a dedicated, full-featured email service provider native to your gym software. We're really proud of it, and it's something that we've recently overhauled. And in addition to all the stuff a good management software should do for you, like member management, attendance, booking, scheduling, and reporting, you can set up an easy, simple, attractive point of sale system to sell merchandise in person or through your website with just a few clicks. And if you like to provide members-only content, we have a content management system that lets you choose who can see what content and when, all visible from a member's web portal and the Gymdesk user app. So give your gym the lift it deserves. Go to gymdesk.com or click the link in the description. Great. So before I ask that question, how often do you recommend using the machine? Is it possible to use it too much to where it won't be that accurate? Because you mentioned DEXA, like you can't really get a DEXA regularly. That's a big event, and it's hard to track how successful a workout protocol is if you're doing something that changes every 3 months, but you only get a scan maybe 6 months to a year.
Yeah, correct. And that's probably one of the bigger things that I see with a DEXA style thing is like, I know here in Australia, like I quiz the people that I got mine done through. They would probably not let you do it more than 4 times a year in a DEXA perspective. That's what I was told. Who knows if that's true or not in that standpoint. But in terms of a BIA machine, it really comes down to, like in my private studio, we were doing it fortnightly. Some people did it weekly because we offered it as part of our packages. And again, being so quick and easy, it just sort of depends in that way. I would sort of say monthly would be the earliest, unless you are really trying to look at it. And e.g., like for me in my studio that I was running, I was literally testing. So it was like, okay, this person has gone through a fortnight of pure strength training. Their goal is to gain muscle mass. What representation are we seeing that? But there is protocols that have to go with that. Like I had to get those clients to scan relatively the same time of day, so that I'm not skewing the data and that sort of stuff in that standpoint as well. So it comes down to a cost prohibition, I would say. But in terms of most of our hirees that we deal with, it is before and after challenges, which is a great thing to do. And the representation I use with even my clients, I still run a few clients online, is when you make a change. So if you make, say, for example, let's go super drastic. You're going to go from carbohydrate-based eating to protein-based eating. What is the change? Or as we mentioned before, I'm going to go from bodybuilding training to endurance training. What is the change? So I more look at it is how long between do you want to look at your changes? But definitely one of the benefits of having a machine all the time is that I would interim test. So we may look at a 12-week cycle, but that's where I would do monthly, for example. So I would get 2 data sets between the 12 weeks, because as you say, you might have this curve, but if you're only bookending it, you don't actually know the middle.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a while for changes to actually occur, for the adaptations to accumulate.
Yes, and there is fluctuation. So if you do scan too regularly, you'll just see fluctuations. Like, for example, in a female, you would never get them to scan during the 7 days either side of their cycle. So just that on its own, because they are more fluid. There is more fluid retention in a female during that period. So the scan results don't particularly massively change, but we've got a fluctuation that if we know about it, there's no point scanning at that time period.
Gotcha. That's good to know. So how do these machines compare to something that you buy off Amazon? I've seen a lot of different things from $50 to a few $100s to even a few $1,000s. They don't appear to be that accurate. So how does this measure up to those?
So there's two sides that I'll discuss on that with you, and I think this is the clarity and what I provide to my customers when they ask me this question as well. When we look at the machine that I use, or any of the in-body machines, most of the BIM, like your commercial machines, they will have multiple points of contact. So it won't just be your feet; it will be your feet and your hands, or it will be your fingers and your thumb, for example, because in terms of BIA machines, they are using electroimpedance. So they are sending a current throughout those perspectives and going through it. In an in-body perspective, there is eight electrodes, sorry. There is the back of the foot, the front of the foot, there is the palm, and then there is the thumb. But majorly, the biggest thing is there is four main points of contact. When we talk about the Amazon, or like I was talking about before, your basic scales or your Fitbit scales, all those sort of things, they are only testing half of your body. That is the biggest issue that comes with body composition machines that are only two electrodes are on your feet. So it sends the electrode up the leg, comes across the groin, and then goes back down the leg. It cannot test the upper body. There is machines that you just handhold, and of course, they only test the upper body. So this is where the experience and the understanding of it comes through. And there's a lot of people, like, you jump on them, the ones you stand on, you're like, oh, I've got 13% body fat. Yeah, well, you do in your legs, but our trunk is the main place that most of us hold fat mass. So it's like, oh, that's great. You've got 14% body fat or 10% body fat in your lower legs, but where's the crucial aspect of your visceral or something in that standpoint?
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, I that's what the one I'm most familiar with. Guys will have one of those handheld ones, looks like a controller.
Correct.
And it doesn't strike me as overly serious, but it is fun for guys to see what their upper body fat mass is, I guess.
I've seen a gym in one of the places that we originally ever hired to, one of the first places, they had both, and that they were trying to do the best they could. So they had a handheld one that they would sit down and do, and then they would stand up and they'd average the two. And like, you can get close, but again, I think like being a percent or two off doesn't sound like a lot, but a percent or two can be a big difference when it comes to composition perspective. And it's also the control of it, I would say, is like an in-body machine. And one of the reasons I'm a believer in-body themselves in comparison to other machines, they've tested and done this where you can input male, female, doesn't make a difference because they're scanning you. There is a competitor that I believe here in Australia that they use like a calculator, there's a questionnaire, right? And it asks how many times do you train and that sort of stuff. And it's believed, so it hasn't been tested, but it's believed that influences the scans. And again, that's where I don't really agree with that. So that's why we stand behind in-body, and that's why I will continue to stand in that standpoint, because they seem to be very transparent with their scientific evidence.
Yeah, that is a problem, that if it skews your results, because first of all, you might not have total understanding of what your training is and how you do it. And you might also just, not be telling the truth, or you haven't been training that way long enough, right? Your body responds differently over a period of time. So,
yeah, and this is the hard part, because like at the end of the day, and I think I believe it's the truth, is everything in this life is marketing. So the machine I'm talking about, it spits out at the end, like, you should have these supplements and you could do this stuff. And like, we're crossing paths in a lot of places, and that's where DEXA, like, it is in that standpoint. It's just it's evidence. It's the same thing there. So there is different options that come together. But again, it's also what's available to the person. That's the hardest thing in some ways.
How big do you think a gym would need to be before it should get an in-body machine?
I'll be selfish here. They could be tiny with us. Realistically, you need to be it needs to be of a reasonable size. And I would we had nearly 100 members in my private studio, and my machine was not used that regularly. So that's the kind of hard point. And again, that's where my business model comes in. I would never purchase a machine again if I owned a studio. If I knew of someone doing a model like I have, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It's the 100% truth. I would not. I would hire one. I would not buy one, because the amount of time the machine sat there doing nothing. And I had two machines, so I had like 60K of capital tied up in machines that sat in a corner. So if I could say to my clients, "Hey guys, this machine's coming in, say the first week of the month," which is one place we hire to. That's what they do. The first week of every month, it is there for the first, second, and third day, and that's when clients have to come in. They come in, they do it, they get their scan, it's done. So to me, that is a much better option. In terms of actual size, I think it comes down to your revenue perspective and the importance you put on the information. So that's a hard question to answer in some ways, but I would say you're looking at your mid-sized gyms and that sort of stuff where you can be doing 30, 40 scans a week, because that's probably where the balance tips over to where it's actually more beneficial to have a machine, in my perspective, than hire a machine if there is an option like we do.
Gotcha. That's exactly what I wanted to know. It seems like maybe you could, if you ever did want to purchase a machine to have there permanently, that it's something that you could onboard members into a cadence for. It's not going to
Massively.
be perfect. So a lot of people are going to drop off, but there will be more people who use it, presumably, if you get them in that habit during their introduction phase into your gym.
So that would realistically be the standpoint. Like, that could be from a small gym all the way through to your largest gyms. Is like, if you get it as part of and that's what it was in my private studio. We tried to have it as part of our studio. So an induction, you got a scan done. We had free access. We didn't even charge our members for the scans, which was a mistake business wise, but great for our customers.
Yeah.
In the standpoint, the machine was always there. So they could be testing and giving the data set to my team at any point. If you can create that cadence, the machine is invaluable. You've just got to be able to foot the cost and be also happy with that perspective. And I guess that's where the balance comes in, right? I loved that aspect that my customers had 100% access to it, but I also then had the issue that I was footing the cost for it. So my membership rates had to be massively higher than what other facilities in the local area to me were.
Gotcha. Excellent. Well, this has been really useful. Where can listeners find you?
So we are Mobile Body Scans. I think Mobile Body Scans is us in terms of it. Instagram, Facebook, that sort of stuff. I think one of our pages has just transferred to Australia. Funny enough, we had a few inquiries from overseas. Unfortunately, we cannot ship a machine economically to America and then get it back, for example. And then www.mobilebodyscans.com.au. And hopefully in the future, one of the things in the business world I'm trying to work on, I'm looking at licensing or being able to develop and teach people. So people that have got these machines that are finding them being underutilized, I'm looking to teach the methods and understanding that I've got, to be able to make a business owner have that revenue perspective to maybe make a machine worthwhile for them.
Excellent, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problems. Thank you for the time.